Close your eyes and listen to the sound between silence and the sea. This is a story of a heart born from water, always flowing, always feeling, and forever searching for home. The ocean never truly sleeps. Even when the world above it lies in silence, when lanterns dim and every house folds into dreams, the sea hums a quiet lullaby beneath the moon. Its voice, soft yet eternal, finds its way through the cracks of night and into the heart of a girl named Lira. Lira lived on the edge of the coast, where the salt air was thick enough to taste and the wind always carried the scent of something ancient. Her small wooden house creaked with every tide, as though the sea itself was breathing through the walls. Every evening, she would sit by her window, with her knees drawn close, staring at the horizon. The waves would whisper, and sometimes she could swear they said her name, Lira. She never told anyone about it. In the village of Orensa, people loved simple things: the smell of grilled fish at dawn, the rhythm of nets being pulled from the water, the laughter of children chasing crabs along the sand. To them, the sea was both a friend and a warning, a place of bounty, but also loss. Many had fathers, brothers, or lovers who never returned from its depths. But to Lira, the sea was not a place of fear. It was home, though she did not know why. Some nights, she would dream of floating, weightless, surrounded by blue light. Strange shapes drifted around her like memories half remembered. A palace made of coral and glass, a song sung by 1,000 voices, and eyes that shimmered like pearls beneath the surface. When she woke, her pillow was damp with tears, though she hadn't been crying. Her grandmother often told her that dreams are just tides of the mind. They come and go, leaving behind little shells of meaning. But Lyra's dreams were different. They didn't wash away with morning. They stayed. On a day when the wind felt heavy with rain, Lira wandered down to the rocky shore. The sea was restless, dark clouds gathering above as if the sky itself were brooding. She walked until she reached the place where the sand met jagged stone, a quiet corner few people visited. There, half buried in the sand, something glimmered. She knelt and brushed it off with trembling fingers. A small broken mirror, its surface clouded and cracked, the frame shaped like coiling waves. It looked impossibly old, yet strangely familiar. When she lifted it toward her face, lightning flickered across the horizon, and for a brief second, just before the thunder, she didn't see her reflection. She saw the sea, not as it was before her, but alive, glowing, breathing, watching her back. Startled, she dropped the mirror. The sound of glass against rock was swallowed by the wind, but in her chest, something deep and ancient stirred awake. That night, the whispers grew louder. They didn't come from outside, not from the ocean's edge or the wind through her window, but from within. Like water rising from beneath her ribs, the sound filled her ears, her lungs, her pulse. Lira, come home. She sat up in bed, breath trembling. The mirror lay on her desk, glinting faintly in the moonlight. The cracks on its surface looked like veins of silver, and in their depths, faint ripples moved, as though the reflection itself were a pool of water. When she touched it, her fingers didn't meet glass. They met cold, liquid. A drop rolled down her skin. For a long while, she said nothing. She didn't scream, didn't run. She only stared at the mirror as if it held every answer she'd ever searched for, but never dared to ask. She felt something inside her, not fear, but recognition. The sea outside her window began to swell, waves hitting the rocks with rhythm as if mirroring her heartbeat. A gust of wind rattled the roof, the scent of rain flooding the air. Lyris whispered softly to herself, "Why do I feel like I've been here before?" Outside, thunder rolled. The storm lasted until dawn. By morning, the village was quiet again, except for Lyra's house, She didn't open the window that day. She didn't go to the market. She sat at her desk watching the mirror. And for the first time, she saw herself. Or perhaps someone who looked like her, but wasn't. The reflection blinked a moment too late. The eyes on the other side shimmered faintly, as though reflecting a world that wasn't this one. Behind that reflection, faint and blurred, she saw the outline of an underwater city, towers shaped like shells, light streaming through glass gardens, and creatures that drifted like thoughts. It vanished when she blinked, leaving only her pale face staring back. That night, she went back to the shore. The waves were calm again, the moon silver and whole. She carried the mirror close to her chest, feeling its chill through her thin shawl. Standing at the edge of the water, she whispered, "Who are you? Why do you call me?" The sea didn't answer, not with words, but the next wave that touched her feet was warm. It felt like a hand. In that moment, Lira understood something she couldn't explain. That the ocean didn't just surround her life. It was a part of her. Every breath she took was borrowed from its rhythm. Every dream she had came from its memory. And as she stood beneath the soft light of the moon, the waves whispering around her ankles, she made a silent promise. To follow the voice. To find where it led. Even if it meant leaving everything she knew behind. Because deep down, she already sensed she wasn't searching for the ocean. She was searching for herself.
The next morning, the world felt softer, as if the storm had washed away something invisible. The air shimmered faintly with the scent of salt and rain. The waves rolled slower now, whispering like they were tired after a night of secrets. Lira stood by the window, her fingers resting on the cool wood of the frame. The mirror lay on her desk again, its cracked surface catching the first gold of morning light. But something was different. The cracks had shifted. Where before they ran wild and broken, now they curved gently, forming the faint outline of a fish, tail curling toward the edge, gliding across silver veins. Lira traced it with her finger. The air hummed faintly, and just for a breath, she heard music. It wasn't from the sea, nor the wind, nor her imagination. It was faint and far away, a melody like water running over glass. Gentle, patient, sad. The song seemed to call her name again, but this time she didn't flinch. She whispered back, "I'm listening." The village went about its morning as it always did. Fishermen hauled their boats into the water, children ran barefoot across the docks, and the old women sold dried seaweed and fruit under the awnings. Lira walked through them like a ghost, half in this world and half in the sound that still lingered in her mind. "Ah, Lira," called an old man by the pier, Captain Mora, his beard silver as the tide. He smiled faintly. "Always," he chuckled. "Dreamers like you belong to the sea. It remembers its own." She paused, caught by his words. "What do you mean?" The old man squinted at the horizon. "When I was young, I saw something once, out there past the cliffs, a shape moving under the moon. Looked like a woman, but her hair floated like seaweed and her eyes." He shook his head. Eyes that made you forget where the shore was. Lyra's heart beat faster. A spirit? Maybe the sea's memory. That night, Lira couldn't sleep. The melody returned, clearer than before. It no longer sounded far away. It sounded below. She sat up, eyes wide in the moonlight. The mirror on her desk shimmered faintly, a ripple moving across its surface like a heartbeat. The moment she touched it, the world tilted. A sound filled her ears like rushing water and wind colliding, and her room melted into light. She gasped, clutching the mirror, but her fingers passed right through it. She was falling. No, drifting. Through water that glowed like dust, silver and blue with ribbons of light weaving around her. Shapes moved beside her, schools of fish like liquid glass, coral forests swaying like breath. And the head? A city. It was exactly as she dreamed. Towers of coral, bridges made of shell and light, and lanterns that floated like bubbles through the water. But the strangest part wasn't the city, it was the people. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin shimmered like the inside of a pearl, and their eyes were wide, reflecting constellations. Some had gills along their necks, others fins along their arms like silk. Lira floated among them unseen, a silent visitor. At the heart of the city stood a great palace, tall spires carved from crystal, the entrance guarded by two massive statues of intertwined fish. She felt drawn toward it, her heart beating in rhythm with the current. As she approached, the water around her pulsed with warmth, and a voice, calm, ancient, and endless, filled her mind. Child of the surface, do you remember who you are? Lira spun around. No one was there, only light, swirling gently. I don't understand. Who's speaking? You once belonged to us, before your name was Lira, before you learned to breathe the air. You were born from our tide, a daughter of the deep. Her breath caught in her throat. That's not possible. But even as she said it, the truth trembled inside her chest like a memory she had always known but never believed. The scene shimmered. The palace dissolved into waves. Suddenly, she stood on a shore, not her own, but an ancient one, with sand made of crushed shells and skies heavy with twilight. In the distance, two figures stood near the edge of the sea. A woman with silver hair and eyes like stars, and the man, human by the look of him, with his hands outstretched toward her. Their voices echoed faintly over the waves. You can't leave the sea, the man said, desperate. You'll fade if you do. I must, the woman replied softly. Our daughters belong to both worlds. She will carry the memory of the ocean within her, and one day she will hear it call. His expression broke. What's her name? The woman smiled, touching his cheek. Lira. The image shattered into ripples, scattering into light. Lira awoke on the floor of her room, the mirror beside her, her heart racing like the tide. The wind outside was calm again. The moonlight glowed pale on her skin. She touched her cheek and felt moisture, salt, as if she had really been beneath the waves. Her voice was a whisper. My mother. The mirror pulsed once, a soft glow. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt seen. From that night on, the whispers no longer came from the sea. They came from inside her. Every wave that broke against the rocks, every song of the tide, every breath she took, it was all part of the same rhythm. And she understood what the voice meant. She wasn't just hearing the sea. She was the sea remembering itself.
The morning sun rose softly over Orensa, spilling gold across the horizon. But inside Lyra's heart, it was still twilight, a soft space between waking and remembering. She moved slowly, every motion heavy with the echo of her dream. The salt in the air felt sharper now, familiar in a way it had never been. Even the sound of the waves carried rhythm, as if they whispered in a language her body was beginning to understand. When she looked at the mirror that morning, it no longer frightened her. The cracks were gone. The surface shimmered clear like the calm sea before dawn. And in its reflection, she could see not just her room, but faintly, as if beneath glass, the glow of that underwater city. The one from her dreams. The one that had called her name. For days, she tried to ignore it. She cooked, she cleaned, she went to the market, smiled at Captain Moore's jokes, but part of her was always elsewhere. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it. A low hum, like the breath of the ocean through the walls of her mind.
until one evening, she couldn't resist. The mirror shimmered again, and Lyra whispered, "Take me back." This time, she didn't fall. She walked through. The water embraced her like memory. It didn't drown or suffocate. It welcomed. Her lungs filled with air and light, her hair floating like a dark halo around her face. She opened her eyes and found herself standing before the gates of the forgotten names. It was vast, an ancient cathedral of coral, with windows made of shifting glass and stairs carved from seashells that glowed faintly with every step. Statues alined the halls, faces both human and otherworldly, their eyes closed as if sleeping. Each statue held a name inscribed on a pearl at its feet, but the words had faded with time. Lyra's footsteps echoed softly. The deeper she walked, the louder her heartbeat became. Or maybe it wasn't her heart. Maybe it was the ocean's. In the center of the hall stood a fountain that flowed upward, water spiraling toward the ceiling before falling again like rain. Floating within its light was a single object, a conch shell, shimmering faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra reached toward it, and when her fingers brushed the shell, she felt something open inside her mind. A flood of sound and memory, voices speaking all at once, stories half forgotten. Remember us, our names. The sea does not forget. The air shimmered. The statues stirred. Their eyes opened, one by one, glowing faintly in the dim light. A voice rose among them, calm, ancient, and filled with both sorrow and gentleness. "You have come home, daughter of the two worlds." Lyra turned. From the water behind the fountain, a figure emerged, tall, graceful, and radiant like the surface of the moon. Her skin shimmered blue and silver, her hair flowing like the tide. "Who are you?" Lyra whispered. The woman smiled, though her eyes were heavy with centuries. "I am Narissa, keeper of the forgotten. I guard the names the world no longer speaks, those lost to storms, to time, and to silence." She approached, her movements as fluid as water. "You are one of them." Lyra's breath caught. One of the forgotten?" "Yes," Narissa said softly. "When you chose the surface, when your mother brought you to breathe the air, your true name was left here, within these halls. You became Lyra, but that is not who you were, not entirely." The realization sank into her like the weight of the ocean. "My name," she whispered. "What was it?" Narissa reached into the fountain. The conch shell glowed brighter, responding to her touch. "It can be spoken only when you remember it, not with your mind, but with your heart." She guided Lyra's hand to the shell. "Listen." Lyra closed her eyes. The sound that filled her wasn't a voice. It was a memory. Laughter underwater. Hands of light reaching toward her. The hum of whales in the distance. A cradle of coral and silk. A song sung by her mother as the waves rocked her to sleep. And in that melody, gentle, endless, her name returned to her like the tide. Liriane. Her eyes flew open. The word left her lips like a breath she'd held for a lifetime. The palace trembled softly as though sighing in relief. The statues bowed their heads, the pearls at their feet glowing again. "You have remembered," Narissa said, smiling faintly, "and with your name, your power returns." Power? The gift of Pisces, the ability to heal, to feel, to carry the pain and beauty of both worlds. You are the bridge between what has been lost and what still dreams. Lyra felt warmth bloom in her chest, spreading outward like light through water. The palace shimmered around her, its colors deepening into hues of sapphire and gold. But along with the warmth came a strange heaviness, a pulse of sorrow she couldn't explain. "What happens now?" she asked.
Narissa's expression grew distant. Now you must choose. You cannot belong to both worlds forever. The ocean remembers you, but so does the shore. Lyra's throat tightened. You mean I have to choose where I live? Yes, the keeper said softly. The ocean will always call you, but every choice leaves something behind. That is the burden of memory and the gift of love. Before Lyra could answer, the water around them rippled violently. The light dimmed. Narissa's eyes widened. He has found you. Who? The one who hunts the tideborn, the one who feeds on forgotten souls. The palace shook, statues cracked, water turned dark, and from the far hall came a deep, echoing roar, not of an animal, but something older. Go, Narissa cried. Find the mirror gate before it's too late. Lyra hesitated. But what about you? The keeper smiled faintly. I am already part of the memory. You must survive to keep it alive. As the world dissolved into chaos, shadows swirling through the water, Lyra turned and ran. Her bare feet touched the glowing shells, the light fading behind her. She didn't look back. The roar followed her, closer, deeper, shaking the very current. Through the shifting corridors, through the broken halls, she saw it, a bright light ahead, like moonlight under the sea. The mirror gate. She dove toward it, and just as the shadow reached her, she whispered her true name once more, Liriani, and the world shattered into light.
When Lira awoke, the world felt strange, quieter than it should have been. The air was heavy, the sky pale, and her room carried the faint scent of brine, though her windows were closed. She sat up slowly, her hair clinging damp against her neck. The mirror lay on the floor beside her bed, dark this time. No light, no shimmer, only stillness. For a long while, she just stared at it. It looked like an ordinary mirror now, nothing more, but she could still feel the echo of that other world inside her chest, the pulse of the ocean, the warmth of her true name, and the haunting voice of Narissa fading like the tide. He has found you. Those words clung to her mind like seaweed. Outside, Orensa was waking. The sound of gulls, the scent of salt, and the chatter of early vendors painted the morning in color again. But to Lira, everything felt slightly off, like a song played one note out of tune. When she walked through the village, people turned to look at her. Not out of curiosity, but confusion. "Morning, Lira," called Captain Mora from his stall. "You look like you've seen a ghost." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I have." He laughed, but stopped when he saw her eyes. There was something in them now, a shimmer, like light beneath water. "You sure you're all right, girl?" She nodded, though she wasn't sure. Just remembering things. Mora frowned, his weathered hand tightening around a rope. "Be careful with memories. The sea's full of them, and not all want to be found." That night, the whispers returned. But they weren't gentle this time. The voice that spoke wasn't the sea. It was something beneath it, deeper, darker. It came through her dreams, rumbling like thunder below the waves. "You are not meant to walk between worlds." She saw flashes, black water, hands reaching, faces without eyes. The statues in the palace of forgotten names, their mouths moving without sound. And behind them all, a shadow. Tall, shifting, its shape unclear, its presence cold. "You have taken what was left behind," it hissed. "Give it back." Lira gasped and woke, heart racing. Her room was drenched in moonlight, but the shadows on her walls seemed to move, slow, breathing. She stumbled toward the mirror. Its surface rippled faintly, dark waves curling inside it. She whispered, "Who are you?" For a moment, nothing. Then, her reflection smiled, but she hadn't. The reflection's eyes glowed faintly blue, just like hers, only colder. It spoke with her own voice, but the tone was not her own. "You shouldn't have remembered, Liriani." Lyra's breath caught. "What do you want from me?" "Your name." The sea gave it back, but it was mine first. Lira stepped back. "You're lying." The shadow behind the reflection twisted, forming the outline of a figure, faceless, yet impossibly alive. The surface of the mirror darkened further, swirling with mist and current. "You think you are special, but every Tideborn carries two halves, one that breathes light and one that drowns in silence. I am what you left behind." The words echoed in her chest. The air felt thinner, colder. She whispered, "My shadow." The reflection smiled wider. "Your truth." Before she could react, a burst of water spilled from the mirror, crashing against her like a wave. She fell backward, gasping as icy air filled her lungs. When she looked up, her room was gone. She was back beneath the sea, but this time it wasn't glowing. It was black. The currents twisted violently, the light of the coral city dim and flickering in the distance. The statues of the palace were cracked and silent. The water pressed down on her like a weight, and in front of her, the shadow. It towered like smoke given form, tendrils of darkness weaving through the current. Its face shifted constantly, sometimes hers, sometimes no one's. Lira whispered, "Why are you doing this?" The shadow's voice rolled like thunder. "Because you broke the balance. You took your name back. You crossed the line between worlds, and now both will drown." Lyric clenched her fists. "Then I'll fix it." It laughed, a sound that made the water tremble. "You can't fix what you are." The darkness lunged. Lyra swam back, her heart pounding. She reached for the light within her chest, the warmth Narissa had given her. "Remember who you are," she told herself. "Liriani." The word sparked like lightning through her body. For a heartbeat, the water around her glowed. The shadow recoiled, hissing. "Names," it growled, "are just chains." "Maybe," she said softly, her voice steady, "but they're also anchors." The light in her chest flared brighter. The sea began to pulse with rhythm, soft at first, then strong. It wasn't just her heart beating, it was the ocean's. And for the first time, she realized she could control it. She spread her hands, and the current obeyed. Light spiraled from her palms like ribbons, twisting through the water, pushing the darkness back. The shadow howled, its shape breaking apart like smoke in a storm. "You cannot hold both worlds," it shrieked. "I am both," she said, "and I will not let either be forgotten." The light exploded outward. The palace trembled, the darkness screamed, then shattered into 1,000 shards of ink that dissolved into the current. Lira fell to her knees, trembling, her heartbeat slowing. The water grew calm again, dimming to a gentle glow. The shadow was gone, but in its place, something lingered. A soft voice, faint and sad. "You cannot destroy what is part of you, Liriani. You can only learn to live with it." When she opened her eyes, she was back in her room. The mirror lay still on the floor, a crack now running through it, shaped like a wave. Outside, dawn had broken. The tide was high, brushing against the stones below her window. She sat quietly for a long time, her hands trembling, her heart both heavy and light. The sea was calm again, but she knew it was watching. And somewhere beneath its surface, the shadow was still there, not gone, just waiting.
Morning arrived like a whisper, quiet, silver, and slow. Lira sat by the window, watching the horizon melt into a blur of blue. The sea was calm again, but she could feel something beneath its surface, a rhythm, faint yet alive, like a heartbeat hidden in the deep. She touched her chest. The pulse inside her matched it perfectly. For days, she hadn't spoken of what happened. The cracked mirror lay under a cloth, silent but humming faintly, as if remembering. She'd tried to live normally again, helping the fishermen's wives, mending nets, carrying baskets of shells. But every time she looked at the water, the sea seemed to breathe back. It was no longer outside of her. It was her. That afternoon, Captain Mora found her sitting on the rocks. "Still staring at the tide, girl?" he said, his voice gruff but kind. Lira smiled faintly. "It's talking to me." Mora chuckled. "The sea talks to all of us. Difference is, most of us are smart enough not to answer back." But then he saw her eyes again, that strange shimmer of blue, soft as moonlight. His laughter faded. "You've changed, haven't you?" She hesitated. "I think I'm remembering who I was, or what I was." Mora looked out to the horizon, his weathered face suddenly grave. "Then be careful. The sea doesn't return memories for free. Every gift it gives, it takes something back." That night, the song came. It began as a hum, distant, delicate, and eerily familiar. Lira sat upright in bed, heart racing. The melody flowed like water, wrapping around her, calling her name in waves of sound. She followed it to the shore. The moon hung low, painting the ocean in silver and shadow. The tide rose higher than usual, licking the stones near her feet. And there, standing half in the water, was her. Not the shadow. Not a reflection. Another Lira. She was dressed in flowing garments that shimmered like liquid glass, her hair floating gently around her. Her eyes glowed faintly, the same color as the sea at dawn. "You heard the song," the other Lira said softly. Her voice echoed with layers as if many voices spoke through her at once. Lira took a step forward. "Who are you?" "I am the memory you forgot, the first tide that carried your name. You have fought the shadow, but balance cannot exist with half a heart." Lira frowned. "You mean?" The other Lira nodded. "You sealed your darkness, but by doing so you silenced your light too." The sea stirred around them, waves forming patterns like words written in motion. The melody grew louder, not from the air, but from within. Lira felt it vibrate in her bones. The sound wasn't just a song, it was language. The sea was speaking, and she understood. It spoke of birth and death, of tides that remember faces long turned to salt, of names that are sung once and echoed forever. It spoke of her, Liriane, the guardian of the threshold between worlds. She had been born from the meeting of two currents, one of light, one of shadow, a bridge, a balance. And when she fell to the human world, the two halves of her soul split apart, the light that forgot and the dark that remembered. The reflection, the shadow, and the girl standing now under the moon were all her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "If I'm both, then which one am I now?" The other Lira smiled sadly. "You are the tide. You rise and you fall. You heal and you destroy. You are never one. You are change itself." The words sank deep into her chest, where the heartbeat of the sea pulsed brighter. The melody around them began to shift, growing warmer, more human. It wrapped around her like a lullaby and a storm at once. "This song?" Lira murmured. "I know it." "You wrote it," the other Lira said, fading slightly now, her form turning into threads of light. "It's the song of tides, the bond between your two selves. Sing it, and both worlds will hear." Lira hesitated, fear flickering in her chest. What if it's too late? It's never too late for water. We always find our way back. So Lira closed her eyes and sang. At first it was quiet, a trembling note that wavered like moonlight. But the sea caught it, echoed it, strengthened it. The wind carried it across the waves. The stars seemed to flicker in rhythm. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface, the shadow stirred. But this time, it did not attack. It listened. The melody wrapped around it too, soft, forgiving,
whole. The darkness pulsed once, twice, then sank quietly, its edges dissolving into light. Lyra's voice rose higher, weaving sorrow and hope into one endless line. She felt her soul expand, reaching both into the sky and down to the ocean floor. For the first time, she felt complete. When the song ended, the sea fell silent. Lira opened her eyes. The other self was gone. The waves had calmed, the air warm again. But in her chest, the heartbeat remained, steady, powerful, alive. She looked out across the water and whispered, "Thank you." The tide came in, brushing against her feet like an answer. And in that gentle touch, she knew. The ocean had not taken anything from her. It had simply taught her to remember.
The dawn after her song felt strange. The sea was quiet, too quiet. Lyra stood barefoot at the edge of the shore, the cold foam licking her toes. The air was heavy, not with storm, but with memory. Every ripple on the surface shimmered with faint images, faces, ships, forgotten skies. It was as if the ocean was dreaming while awake. Her song had done something deep, something irreversible. She turned toward the cliffs, where Captain Mora and the others were staring at the sea with unease. The old man's face was pale beneath his salt-streaked beard. "Something's changed," he muttered. "The current's off. Nets are tearing. Fish have vanished. Even the gulls won't fly over the water." Lyra felt the truth of it in her bones. The pulse of the sea was no longer steady. It was remembering. That night, she returned to the cracked mirror, still hidden beneath a white cloth. When she lifted it, the surface shimmered faintly, like water held in a silver bowl. Her reflection blinked. Not the dark version of her this time, but something older. A woman's face. Eyes ancient and deep as the ocean trench. Liriani, it said, her true name. "You have awakened what sleeps beneath." Lyra trembled. "What do you mean?" "The memory of water," the reflection whispered. "It remembers every soul it has ever touched, every tear, every storm, every drowned dream. When you sang, you called it back." "Back for what?" "To finish what was never ended." The mirror pulsed, and for an instant she saw flashes. Cities made of coral and glass, whales singing in harmony, a world of light beneath the waves. And then the silence of ruin, the sea swallowing itself. The vision shattered. Lyra gasped and stumbled backward. The reflection was gone. Only her face remained, pale and frightened. Outside, thunder rumbled, though no storm had formed. The tide was rising, faster than usual. She ran to the shore. The villagers had gathered, holding lanterns, pointing at the horizon. The sea was glowing. Faint lines of blue light spiraled in the dark water, forming enormous circular patterns, like eyes slowly opening. Mora grabbed her arm. "What's happening? What did you do?" She couldn't speak. The patterns in the water pulsed, each one timed with her heartbeat. She could hear them calling, not in words, but in sound. 1,000 layered whispers rising from the deep. "They're not angry," she said softly. "They're awake." The first wave struck the shore with a sound like thunder, but instead of water, it brought memories. Images spilled across the sand, shimmering like reflections in glass. She saw moments frozen in time. A mother.
The dawn after her song felt strange. The sea was quiet, too quiet. Lyra stood barefoot at the edge of the shore, the cold foam licking her toes. The air was heavy, not with storm, but with memory. Every ripple on the surface shimmered with faint images,
Faces, ships, forgotten skies. It was as if the ocean was dreaming while awake. Her song had done something. Something deep. Something irreversible. She turned toward the cliffs, where Captain Mora and the others were staring at the sea with unease. The old man's face was pale beneath his salt-streaked beard. "Something's changed," he muttered. "The current's off. Nets are tearing. Fish have vanished. Even the gold won't fly over the water." Lira felt the truth of it in her bones. The pulse of the sea was no longer steady. It was remembering. That night, she returned to the cracked mirror, still hidden beneath a white cloth. When she lifted it, the surface shimmered faintly, like water held in a silver bowl. Her reflection blinked. Not the dark version of her this time, but something older. A woman's face, eyes ancient and deep as the ocean trench. Liriana, it said, her true name. "You have awakened what sleeps beneath." Lira trembled. "What do you mean?" "The memory of water," the reflection whispered. "It remembers every soul it has ever touched, every tear, every storm, every drowned dream. When you sang, you called it back. Back for what?" "To finish what was never ended." The mirror pulsed, and for an instant she saw flashes, cities made of coral and glass, whales singing in harmony, a world of light beneath the waves, and then the silence of ruin, the sea swallowing itself. The vision shattered. Lira gasped and stumbled backward. The reflection was gone. Only her face remained, pale and frightened. Outside, thunder rumbled, though no storm had formed. The tide was rising, faster than usual. She ran to the shore. The villagers had gathered, holding lanterns pointing at the horizon. The sea was glowing. Faint lines of blue light spiraled in the bark water, forming enormous circular patterns, like eyes slowly opening. Mora grabbed her arm. "What's happening? What did you do?" She couldn't speak. The patterns in the water pulsed, each one timed with her heartbeat. She could hear them calling, not in words, but in sound. 1,000 layered whispers rising from the deep. "They're not angry," she said softly. "They're awake." The first wave struck the shore with a sound like thunder, but instead of water, it brought memories. Images spilled across the sand, shimmering like reflections in glass. Lira saw moments frozen in time. A mother kissing a child, a sailor throwing flowers into the sea, a mermaid watching a ship burn in the distance. Every tear that had ever fallen into the ocean had come back. The villagers dropped to their knees, terrified and awed. The light wrapped around them, gentle but overwhelming. Lira took a step forward, letting the glowing tide touch her feet. The water felt alive, not cold, not wet, but aware. "I remember you," she whispered, and the water answered. Her vision blurred again, not in dream this time, but in communion. She was floating above a vast underwater world. Shapes of light drifted below. Whales, spirits, the shadows of ancient guardians. At the center of it all, a massive structure pulsed, a heart made of coral and crystal, glowing like 1,000 suns. "This is the memory," the voice said. The voice was her own, or maybe the sea's. "It carries everything that has ever lived and everything that has ever been lost. It remembers love, and it remembers sorrow." Lira reached out her hand, and the ocean heart pulsed once in response. "You once were its keeper," the voice continued. "But you left it when you chose to live among those who forget." Tears filled her eyes. "And now, Now, it needs you again. Because forgetting has gone too far. Her body trembled. She felt torn between worlds again. The girl who longed for peace and the guardian who was bound to the tide. What will happen if I answer its call? She whispered. The sea's voice sighed softly. You will lose your silence, but you will give the world its memory back. She opened her eyes. The villagers were watching her, their faces bathed in blue light. Mora took a step closer. Whatever this is, can you stop it? Lira looked at him with calm, glistening eyes. No, she said softly. It isn't meant to be stopped. She walked into the sea. Every step sent ripples of light outward. The water rose around her, curling gently like a hand cradling her body. The melody began again, her song, but older now, deeper, carried by countless unseen voices beneath the surface. As the tide closed over her, Mora shouted her name, but she didn't turn back. She was not drowning. She was returning. Far below, the ocean heart began to glow brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her breath. The voices of the sea rose in harmony, not in chaos, but in remembrance.
The ocean had no beginning that morning, no horizon, no end. Only light, endless and soft, trembling like breath beneath the waves. Lira floated in the quiet heart of it all, suspended in blue. Her body was no longer heavy, no longer bound to time or gravity. Around her, the water shimmered with threads of memory, voices, laughter, fragments of sunlight from 1,000 forgotten lives. Every sound, every echo, every tear, all of it belonged here. All of it was her. And for the first time since she'd been born into the world above, she felt home. A figure approached from the deep, the same reflection she had faced before, only now it carried no shadow. Its form was fluid, glowing faintly, its eyes calm and endless as the sea itself. You answered the call, the reflection said, its voice both hers and not hers. You remembered what you are. Lyra's voice came out as a whisper, soft as bubbles rising. But I left this place once. I wanted to live as one of them, to feel what it meant to forget. And you did, said the reflection. That was your gift, to learn how to love the fragile things that fade. But now you must decide. Lira frowned. Decide? The reflection nodded slowly. The memory of water has awakened. It remembers everything, but it needs a keeper to balance the tides of memory and forgetting. Without you, it will drown the world in what once was. Lyra's pulse quickened. And if I stay? Then the world will go on forgetting, as it should. The sea will sleep again, and you will remain here, unseen, unheard, but eternal. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them. She could still feel the pull of the world above, the salt wind, Mora's boat shouting her name, the warmth of a lantern's glow through the fog. And yet, here, the sea was alive with truth. Here, she belonged to something vast. What if I could be both? She asked softly. The one who remembers and the one who forgets. The reflection smiled faintly, almost sadly. You are a bridge, Lariani. You always were. But bridges are not meant to stay still. They tremble, they break, they rebuild. You must choose where you will stand. The water around her began to shift. Visions rippled before her eyes. The village, Mora's boat, the children running along the beach. Then deeper still, the ancient ruins beneath the ocean floor, glowing with soft coral light. The ocean hummed, not demanding, but waiting. Will you return to them? Asked the reflection. Or remain their guardian in silence? Lira looked down at her hands, pale now, luminous. They shimmered like water in sunlight. If I go back, Will I remember this? Only when the sea calls your name again. And if I stay, you will remember forever, but you will never touch the sky again. Tears rose in her eyes, merging seamlessly with the water around her. She looked upward, where the faint golden glow of the surface flickered like a dream. I thought I wanted peace, but peace without life is only stillness. The reflection smiled, a reflection no longer, but a mirror dissolving into light. Then go, it said softly. Carry the ocean with you. Let the tide live through your breath. The current began to pull her upward. The ocean heart pulsed once more, not to hold her, but to release her. Its light dimmed to a calm rhythm, like a lullaby being sung to itself. The water grew thinner, brighter. She felt her body again, heavier, human, warm. Then, with one last shimmer of silver light, she broke through the surface. The morning sky stretched vast above her. Clouds drifted like ships, and the sun painted the horizon in pale gold. She gasped for air and laughed through tears. On the shore, Captain Mora dropped his net in shock. By the stars, she's alive! He waded into the surf, pulling her toward the sand. You were gone for 3 days, he shouted. We thought... I was, Lira smiled faintly, but I came back. Mora frowned at her eyes, bright as liquid glass, glowing faintly in the sunlight. What happened down there? Lira looked at the sea, calm now, gentle as if asleep. I remembered, and I learned that even the ocean can forgive itself. That evening, as the village gathered to watch the sunset, Lira sat by the water, humming the Song of Tides, not as a summoning, but as a blessing. The children played nearby, the waves lapping at their feet. When one of them asked her what she was singing, she smiled softly. A song the sea taught me. It helps the water rest. The child tilted his head. Can you teach me? Lira hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but only if you promise to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. The boy closed his eyes and together they sang, two small voices carried by the evening wind. That night, when the tide rose, it stopped just at her door and retreated quietly, as if bowing in respect. And though she slept deeply, her dreams were filled with soft blue light and the echo of gentle waves, a promise that the ocean and she were never truly apart.
Years passed like slow tides, rising and falling to the rhythm of quiet days. The village changed. New boats, new songs, new faces. But the sea remained the same, always patient, always breathing. Lira had grown older. Her hair now carried the silver of moonlight. Her hands, once unmarked, bore the gentle traces of time. Yet in her eyes, that same shifting blue, there was a stillness that no years could touch. Children who once learned her sea lullabies had grown into sailors and mothers and poets. They would come to visit her cottage by the shore, bringing shells, stories, and questions they couldn't ask anyone else. And when the waves sang too loudly in their hearts, they would say, "Let's go to Lira. She listened like the sea." One evening, the horizon glowed with a pale rose color. The air was soft, heavy with the scent of salt and flowers. Lira sat by the water, her toes buried in the sand. She was humming, quietly, absent-mindedly, the same song that had once awakened the heart of the ocean. The tide whispered close, as if to listen. She smiled faintly. "You're early tonight." A wave rolled in, small and deliberate, brushing her foot like a friend's touch. "Has it really been that long," she murmured, "since you called my name?" The sea answered with silence, but a silence that breathed. That night she dreamed again. She was standing beneath the waves, but not cold, not afraid. The world below was no longer made of memory. It was alive, luminous. The coral tower she once saw in visions now glowed with gold and sapphire light. Whales drifted like moving mountains. Schools of fish shimmered like starlight in motion. At the center of it all stood the ocean heart, calm,
radiant, pulsing with warmth instead of sorrow. And from its light emerged a figure, familiar, beloved, infinite. Her reflection, her other self. Lira felt no fear, only a deep, aching tenderness. "You came," the reflection said softly. "The tide called and you answered again." Lira smiled through tears. "I thought you were gone." "We never truly leave," said the reflection. "We simply change shape, like water." The figure reached out, touching Lira's chest, just above her heart. "Do you feel it?" A gentle rhythm echoed within her, not her own heartbeat, but something larger, the same pulse that moved through waves, through rain, through rivers that had never met the sea. The ocean remembers you, and it thanks you. The world around her shimmered, and she was suddenly standing not under the sea, but within it, surrounded by glowing threads of light. Each one held a memory, the laughter of children, the whisper of storms, the gentle cry of newborn tides. Every voice she had ever heard, every person she had ever loved, all connected, all carried by the same current. She felt herself dissolve, not in death, but in becoming. Her edges softened, her breath turned to bubbles of light, her skin into water. The reflection spoke one last time. "You gave us peace, but it matters how you use that peace. Now rest with us." When she awoke, dawn had already broken. The sea was calm, golden with morning. She rose slowly, her body fragile but light. She walked to the water's edge, her steps sinking softly into the sand. The tide reached out to greet her. Villagers later said they saw her standing there, smiling at the sea, whispering words they couldn't hear. The light around her shimmered strangely, like sunlight bending through glass. And when the next wave came, she didn't move aside. She stepped forward, not in fear, not in surrender, but in grace. They never found her body. But on that night, when the moon rose full, the tide sang. A melody, gentle, slow, familiar, the song of tides. And those who listened closely swore they could hear her voice within it, soft and warm as before. "Do not fear the deep. It is where your heart learns to breathe." Years later, the villagers built a small shrine near the shore, a circle of stones and seashells where travelers could leave offerings and wishes. They called it the Guardian's Rest. Sometimes when the wind blew from the west, the sea would glow faintly in the dark, soft blue, like a heartbeat. And those who stayed long enough could swear they saw her, walking where the waves kissed the sand, her hair a trail of moonlight, her smile quiet as the dawn.